Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another message from Fountain Springs Church. My name is Kevin, and I'm on staff at FSC. I'm glad you're joining not just me, but our in-person and online locations worshiping God together. Today, we are going to hear last week's message from one of our pastors, and spoiler alert, it's been shortened a bit to be broadcasted here on your screen. If you want to listen to the whole message, go to our website at messages.fs.church to listen to it all. Again, we are glad you're joining us.
So we're starting a new series, and I need to set this up, hopefully, where you know what's about to play out. And so I'm going to say something you might say, that was rather dogmatic of David to say. So listen, I believe wholeheartedly that today God wants to share something with you, wants you to hear something that is from Him, that is about Him. So I don't know what your reason is for church, but one of them needs to be that it's about God. And so when we spend time with God, it's that we would hear from Him, that we would focus on Him, that we would talk about Him, that we would hear from Him. So Mark chapter 12, one of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, so he's impressed. So he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Is that not the quintessential? That's like what you think a teacher of religious law would ask Jesus, going, so Jesus, since law is the most important, which of the laws is the most important? I wonder what you'd ask Jesus if you're face to face in that moment. You might say, Jesus, I'd like to know my purpose in life. You might ask Jesus, if you're single, what's going to happen in the future? If you're looking for a job, am I going to get this job? I don't know what you would ask Jesus, but this guy has this moment with Jesus, and he decides to say, law. He makes Jesus focus entirely on religion and law. How stinking boring and annoying. You kind of wish he'd asked something different so you and I could at least get some good insight. Before you hate too much, I don't think this teacher of religious law started off thinking law was everything. Have you ever found yourself starting off with, here's the agenda, here's what this is all going to be about, but then it ended up not being about that? What if he started off loving God and thinking life was all about God? But along the way got caught up in stuff and started believing that religion and law was everything about God. I just don't want you hating on, because I think we're all very similar in this, is that sometimes we get drifted away. But that's why we need Jesus. Because you and I, we drift. And I love how Jesus answers this guy, hey, what's the most important law? Because life is all about law. And so Jesus even uses I'll use your law language, law man. He doesn't say that. That's my interpretation. But Jesus replied, the most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. I love what Jesus just did. He's like, you want to talk about law and the most important laws? Cool. I'm going to turn it upside down. And in that moment, Jesus wrecked religion. And I love it. Jesus said relationships are more important than religion. That's what that just said. That should be a fresh take for you and I. That when he's talking to the law guy, and the law guy is going, since life, he's saying this underneath undertones, since life is all about religion and law, Jesus, since that's the biggest deal in life, Jesus, what's the most important? And Jesus says, oh, you want to know what's most important? A relationship with God and relationships with people. It's not just about love. He wasn't just saying be nice, hold doors open. Because you have to apply that to God too. Your job is not to just hold the door open for God. He was speaking about relationships and how you and I, our greatest need, the most important thing in life, is a relationship with God and a relationship with people. And you know what our society is horrible at right now? Relationships. Let me teach you some stuff you may already know, but I'll just bring it up. If you study poverty in our world, you're going to find three major classifications of poverty. Of course, you're going to find material, when you don't have the basic necessities regarding like food or just even a place like a shelter of some sort, and you don't have the materials you should have. That's considered poverty if you don't have that. Spiritual poverty, come on, existence of the church. Jesus knew that you and I would need help, that we would have weeks that go woo and dip down, and weeks that are like, oh, life is awesome, and that we would find ourselves sometimes in poverty spiritually. And if you just look at the news nowadays, you see the poverty of our world regarding spirituality, as in, better yet, connection to God. But I want to point out that one of the poverty levels in the world is relational. That you could actually, it's not the amount of relationships that you could right now be feeling this, that you don't have the close relationships that you crave, that something in you is built in you to want. Now, some of you are like, I'm introverted. I just need a book. That's all I need is a book. And that's not true. That's not true. No matter what your personality is, you were made, crafted by the Creator, God Himself, to want and need relationships. If you take this relational needs talk that I'm doing and put it into your core needs, find this interesting. Dr. Katie Koch says this in her book, 5 to Thrive. By the way, just pause the sermon for a second. You need this. This is not what the sermon's about, but this is something you need. If you have anybody in your life, okay, here. So these core needs, these identified as the core needs that every one of us, all of us, not anyone left out, this is what we all need. Security. Who can I trust? And some of you are like, nobody. Okay, so identity. Who am I? You see our society right now trying to figure this out. It's just showing you this is one of our core needs. It's why it's a big deal. Belonging. Who wants me? Purpose. Why am I alive? Competence. What do I do well? These, by professional people who have studied you and I and the human being, all what we understand and want, these are our 5 core needs. What I find fascinating about them is it requires relationships. For you to actually have your core needs satisfied. It's not just the belonging one. You're like, oh yeah, I see the belonging one. No, who can I trust? Some of you are like, you don't trust people because of past experiences. And so when you choose not to trust because of the past, guess what you're not going to have in the future? The relationships you need. Identity, who am I? We're allowing the wrong people to tell us this. We're allowing our feelings to tell us. This is why you need people and the right people. Of course, belonging, but purpose. Why am I alive? What do I do well? You need people. You need relationships. Let me use this old phrase, terminology, that it takes a village to raise a child, right? Yeah. I believe it takes a village to do life well. I don't think it's just in relation to raising a kid. It takes a village. Let me show you a village example. Some of you, all you can think about is village people, and you're going to have to get over that. Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, generation gaps. Let me show you an example of a village moment. Jesus is in a house teaching and preaching, and what happens is the house gets full, and then people begin to even crowd around the house, around the doors, the windows, or just like listening in to this guy preach and talk about stuff. They're like, this doesn't sound like religion. This sounds like a relationship with God and other people. What in the world? And they're so intrigued that it's packing the place out. And you're going to see a village. Mark chapter 2. While he's preaching God's word to them, 4 men arrived carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. They couldn't bring him to Jesus because of the crowd that I just told you about. So they dug a hole through the roof or roof, wherever you come from, above his head. Some of you are like, that's so sweet. Oh, come on. Someone digs a hole in your roof, you're like, call the cops. Then they lowered the man on his mat right down in front of Jesus. Let me give you a picture so that we're all in the same place at the same moment. You've got Jesus preaching in a house and it's packed. So packed that the only option is not to like even weave through the people. Excuse me, got a paralyzed guy. Excuse me. They don't even do that. The only option they have is to go the roundabout way, go up the stairs, because there's often stairs to get to the roof, or a ladder, get up on top of the roof and start like literally making a hole in the roof. Can you imagine this moment? Jesus is preaching and teaching, and all of a sudden, everyone's going to get distracted. I mean, you're like, is there a woodpecker up there? What's going on up there? But then all of a sudden, the roof begins to open up even more and more and more, enough to fit a human man just down through there on a mat, down in front of Jesus. Jesus, forgive me for saying it this way, but you need to hear it this way. Jesus is not stupid. He's aware of what's going on. This man is paralyzed. He has a physical need. He's paralyzed. Everyone around sees the obvious fix here. You've got Jesus, who now has a reputation. He has a reputation of healing people, of doing the supernatural. That's why these 4 guys are lowering their friend down in front of Jesus. And so it seems obvious, right? Maybe you've been frustrated sometimes with me. You're like, David, it's an obvious move here, Pastor David, is to do this. But then sometimes I don't do that, and you get frustrated. I wonder if they're frustrated with Jesus, because they're like, Jesus, I mean, this is what you do, man. So guy lowers down. Oh, this is your option. Heal the guy. And the ones who already believed are prepped and ready to take this story and to spread it everywhere. They're so excited. Jesus, the healer, is about to heal the impossible, a paralyzed guy. This is going to be awesome. And look what Jesus says. Seeing their faith. Now stop for a second. Already you and I are probably thinking it's the story of the paralyzed guy. It's the story of this guy going through the roof, right? The story's about the guy who can't do what he wants to do in life. Physically, he needs healing. The story's about him, right? Look what Jesus leads with. Because of their faith. Seeing their faith. Notice what Jesus pays attention to first. The dude's village. That's what this is where people get frustrated. They're like, Jesus, don't you see the guy? But Jesus hones in on, and what's cool is this is written by a disciple. This is written by people around going, we're documenting what's going on. And what they lock onto is what Jesus did. He saw their faith. He saw the faith of the village, and then he does this. My child, your sins are forgiven. I bet some people were super disappointed. They're like, does he not understand what this guy's problem is? It's logical, don't you think? But Jesus leads not only with the faith of this village, the people involved with this guy. Here's what I'm going to do first. Your sins are forgiven. You're thinking, oh, I bet this guy had a guilty conscience. Jesus knows some things that we don't know, and so, of course, he's going to lead with, hey, let's clean some things up real quick. You're forgiven. Don't worry about it. You don't have to feel bad anymore. See, sometimes we forget why Jesus offered us forgiveness of sins. Sometimes we think, well, it's heaven, right? The goal is heaven. Nope. The goal is not to feel shame and regret. No, that's not the goal. That's a great byproduct, but that's not the goal. Do you know the goal has always been a relationship with God? The goal has always been relationship. So notice that you and I see a physical need. It seems so stinking obvious, but this is all about relationships in this moment, and Jesus doesn't get distracted. He leads with, because of the faith of your village, I'm going to fix my relationship with you. How beautiful is it? Now, if you haven't read the story, you're like, but what happens next? He does heal the guy, which is cool. And the religious leaders are like, oh my goodness. And there's a whole tension between you forgave sins, you healed a guy, what should we deal with? But what you and I need to see in this is that Jesus didn't just say the greatest thing in life that you and I should pay attention to is a relationship with God and relationship with people. He showed it over and over and over and over and over again, relationship. So you need a village. Now, you may not know what a village is, right? You're like, is that the phase before town and then city? Like, how's this work? Here's a definition of village: a diverse community of consistent, interconnected people. Spoiler alert: a church is a village. There's different sizes of village, just so you know. But a diverse community, everyone doesn't think the way that you think. Everyone doesn't look like you look. Everyone doesn't do what you do. You need a village. You were made to need a village, and many of us don't have one. We're trying to do relationships the way we used to in third grade. It's when you go out to recess and you want to swing on the swing, and then all of a sudden you make a best friend, the person next to you. What? Like, what do you guys like about each other? Nothing. They're swinging, so we're best friends now. Do you know recess was village making, right? And as adults, that's why we're like, I don't know how to do this. To where some of you have concluded, listen to me very closely, some of you think you no longer need a village. Be careful. We live in what's called, they call us the loneliness generation ever. The loneliest generation ever. That's us. Yay, us. How about we fix it? So let me prove some stuff to you. Here's why we need a village. We need pushed and challenged. Yeah, you do. That's why you need a sermon who isn't politically correct. Yeah? That's why you need a pastor who will regularly offend you. I'm just kidding. No, like, so we need pushed and we need challenged. Proverbs 27:17. Many of us know this and we didn't even know it's in the Bible. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. You have blind spots. So do I. You get into a rut. So do I. It's why we need pushed and challenged. It's why if you like sports, maybe you don't, so forgive me, but if you like sports, the best teams have a coach. Because the coach isn't there to just, all right, professionals, here's how you dribble a basketball or here's how you throw a football. They don't need that. But they need someone to extract a few extra % of potential out. Let's go a little nicer. We need encouraged and reminded. Oh, how sweet. Yes, we do. Romans 1:12. When we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith. That sounds logical for a guy who wrote something that's in the Bible. When we get together, I want to encourage you in your faith, but I also want to be encouraged by yours. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're teaching or learning, you need to be encouraged. You need a village to get the encouragement that your soul currently craves. And we live in the world right now who does, can we just say the opposite of encouraging each other? We need to be good at this. 1 Thessalonians. So encourage each other and build each other up, just as you're already doing. It shows you examples that in the past, the church was known for how well we encouraged each other. What would you think about us being that kind of a church? It doesn't mean that we have to get rid of truth and we can't speak truth, but sometimes we think it's always an either or. Why can't we do both? Let's be like crazy encouraging of each other. Now, some of you are like, David, I don't have anybody in my life that will encourage me. You live with all jerks. You work with jerks. Everyone around you a jerk. Okay, all right. You need to be encouraged. The best option I can have is I'd like to be in your life. So here, let me give you my number, 605-250-1224. Some of you totally still think this is a scam. It's so funny. When people reply, oh, it's really you. You want me to send you a picture of my face? Like, yeah. If you don't have anybody in your life, or maybe you do, and you just like, I need to be encouraged, then just text the word encouraged to my number, and I'll, as often as I can, will send you a verse or encouragement, or maybe if I fall in my face that day, I'll take a picture and be like, hey, I bet your day's going better than mine already. So I want to encourage you. If you don't have anybody in your life, listen, no church is too big for the pastor to be a part of people's lives. So listen, if you need encouragement, I can't do any more than just give you my stinking number. Got it? So let's not live another day in a deficit of encouragement. All right. We need picked up and protected. We need to be good at this, church. Ecclesiastes 4. 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Most of us have our own stories, don't we? Of a moment that you fell. And it's more than just falling on your face. It was a moment, and everyone left you. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. I guess that's for those of you who camp, whatever. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back. I love the word, and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. I'm going to bring it up again. Church, what if we got really good at this? Where when we saw someone fall, our mode was not what did they do? Or did you hear about? What if we said, hey, let's get that person picked up and protected, because the devil's the one who's the ultimate responsible one. Can you imagine what would happen in a church like that? I'm excited. Let me show you another one. We need other people's talents and gifts. Yeah, you do. I do too. We're not good at everything. Quit trying to be good at everything. Romans 12. In his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. No, do not misread this. It's like, oh, well, my gift is not, so I'm out of that one. No, that's not. This is exampling we all do different things. If you are a teacher, teach well. All right? If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it's giving, give generously. If God has given you a leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Other portions of the Bible talk about how the church is a body and that we need all of the parts of the body. What it's exempling is this, is that you bring something to the table that I do not, and I bring something to the table that you do not. We need a village. If you want to fulfill the potential that God put in you, he designed it to require others to help bring it out. So class, let's review. We need pushed and challenged, encouraged and reminded, picked up and protected, and other people's talents and gifts. And some of you right now are going, oh, that's my BFF. I'm going to text. Right now you're like, I just want you to know the pastor just said what we need, and you're everything. You're absolutely everything. I knew some of us would be there. And no, there's a whole other group going, I've never met that person. Let me help. You're not supposed to go after one person who can do it all. You're supposed to have a village that this is all included. Let me walk this out a bit more practically. Your spouse, please, if you're married, listen. Your spouse is not in your life to accomplish all of this for you every single day. Parents, it is not your role to be that for your kid every single day for the rest of your life. You need a village to bring that. Many of us are still trying to duplicate what happened in elementary school, skip middle school, that was tragic, high school and college. And I'm telling you, what we're trying to do is find that friend that happened in a dorm. And we're like, as an adult, I just don't have those friendships anymore. Or you're like, forget that, I'm just going to be friends with my family and that's it. You need a village. You need family, you need people you're not related to as well. We need to literally find our people, which means you need to be a part of a village rather than trying to find the most perfect, epic person you could ever find who does everything right always. Your next step is be a part of a village, and you will find those things inside of the village. Whether this reads your mail or not, let me tell you something that I'm aware of. The majority of our church right now is not a part of a village. And it's time that you and I say this has to stop. If you look at the symptoms in society about loneliness and discouragement, anxiety and stuff like that, some of that can be solved by getting more people involved in their villages. You do know the tactic of the devil, right? Of the devil? Do you know what prey does? Isolates you. The number one thing he wants you first is isolated. So it makes sense that Jesus was like, you want to know the most important thing? All right. Relationship with God, relationship with people. So I told you that I would tell you what I think God wants us to hear, but some of you were hoping I would forget this. Nope, haven't. That I'm going to give you something to do. I want to introduce you into, I'll call it an on-ramp into the village. It's called Love Your Neighbor Week. This is not a desperate plea to get more volunteers. I suspect we'll have hundreds, if not thousands of people involved in this. I'm going to tell you we're going to get done what needs to be done. But if you want an on-ramp, especially if you're brand new and you're like, I don't have the people in my life, I'm brand new, I want to meet some people, what's the church do for me? No, it's what do you do in the village? And so we do a missions trip to our city every year. There's backstory to it. I'll tell you really quick. I moved here, was like, I'm going to be a pastor, no clue how to do it. Started meeting some people. I met the director of the Red Cross in our area. So we're just talking, get to know each other. He texts me, says, hey, come meet me. I go meet him in a neighborhood, show up to the house that he tells me to show up. But what I notice is, as I pull up to the house, there's the church vans and trailers. You've seen those? Typically like 15-passenger dangerous vans and the trailer on there, right? You go, oh, yeah. And I show up and I see that on the trailers, but even the license plates, they're not local. They're like Texas and Alabama and Florida. And I'm like, what? I mean, are they renting these here houses? What's this do? What's going on? So I asked my buddy, you know anything about those churches out there? He's like, oh, yeah. Every year, churches send teams to our city to do work that needs to be done in our city. I'm like, people do missions trips to our city? It's the first time I ever lived in a place that people like came to the place I lived to serve the people that I live with. I drove away and heard God very clearly. He says, you better lead this church to do missions trips in the city that the church exists. And so since then, we've been doing missions trips, yes, globally, but also locally. And you may think, good, we're a church that meets the needs of other people. Yes. But don't miss that this is an opportunity for your own needs to actually be met. That you would actually be a part of a village, get to know someone, work alongside, shoulder to shoulder. You need this. And so do the people outside of our church. There's your on-ramp. May God work in your life to where you have the village that you need.
We're so glad you tuned in today. Fountain Springs Church is located in the Black Hills of South Dakota, but our community reaches beyond our neighborhoods and spreads around the whole world. Our website is a great way to give, get involved, and get connected. If you appreciate our ministry and want to be part of our mission to show people who Jesus is, here's what I recommend. Join us financially. When you do that, you're giving other people the opportunity to hear what you just heard. So here's a way to do that. Visit our website at fs.church/give. And thank you so much for being with us today. And let's do our best this week to show people who Jesus is.